Since you clicked on this video, I know you're excited to see the interview I just had with Sung Vivathana of SpotOn GPS Fence. So this won't take more than just a second or two of your time. I wanted to just give you a little bit of a heads up about what you're about to see. First and foremost, an amazing interview with an absolutely brilliant man. I basically was able to ask him a whole bunch of questions about SpotOn GPS Fence, and he really gives us a deep dive into the technology. So you're gonna wanna watch through to the end of this video. It's fantastic. The audio is amazing. This was interview take 2 because the first interview, the audio was not amazing. So he was kind and gracious enough to grant me a second interview. But unfortunately, I don't know if it was my computer or what, but there are some, I think, what are dropped frames. So the video itself, while it's amazing quality, does seem to lag just a little bit. The actual content of this interview was so amazing that I didn't want to scrap the interview. And I just really want to encourage you to be patient with the video and maybe just consider putting some headphones on so that you can listen through to the amazing content that Sung Vivathana shares. So as I said, I really hope you enjoy this amazing interview with the man behind the tech of SpotOn GPS Fence, and let me know what questions you have in the comments below. Would love to hear your feedback. All right, without further ado, here's the interview. Welcome back to Big Dog Mom. In this video, we have the pleasure of sitting down with Sung Vivathana from SpotOn GPS Fence. As you may know, we actually recorded this interview a few months back, but unfortunately, due to technological issues, our audio was less than stellar in that interview. So what we wanted to do was sit down and kind of do a do-over of that interview. And so that's what today is. We are going to sit down and ask a whole bunch of questions to the man behind the tech of SpotOn GPS Fence. And so I'm hopeful that we'll be able to touch on some of your questions as well. I have received over the last few months several questions about SpotOn GPS Fence. So we are going to pick the genius's brain, if you will. If you are new here, my name is Stephanie, aka Big Dog Mom. And on this channel, I provide information and resources to help you and your big dog live your best life together. Things like SpotOn GPS Fence. So Sung has 20 years of experience in the design of mission control electro-optical systems for defense, telecommunications, and consumer electronics. He led the invention, the development, and the launch of SpotOn GPS Fence and holds 6 patents covering GPS-based pet containment and tracking. Sung has a BSEE from Widener University and an MBA from the University of New Hampshire, and he has EE graduate coursework at Purdue University. With that, Sung, why don't you tell us a little bit about what brought you to SpotOn GPS Fence? And if you want to add to that, I know you have a dog, and I would love to hear a little bit more about your dog as well.
Sure. Well, thank you for the great introduction, Stephanie. Appreciate it. And thank you for having me. So I spent the majority of my professional career in the defense industry, designing what you just said, electro-optical devices, night vision devices for the U.S. Army and other of America's forces. And I did that for almost 10 years. Back in 2013, I decided to move on from that and look at other, look into other sectors in terms of electronics and engineering. And so I did that for a year or two, and back in 2015, our investor now, co-founder of SpotOn GPS Fence, reached out to me and said, hey, you want to get together and develop something cool, new in the consumer space? And I said, absolutely. Yeah, more than happy to do that. And so it was based on, and the reason he contacted me was he had a casual conversation with his irrigation service provider. And he said, hey, I'm in a little bit of a bind because when I go to people's homes to service their irrigation system, I accidentally cut into their buried wire fence. And that gets me in a lot of hot water with them because that, causes or allows their dogs to escape, which is not good. And so he asked if there was an opportunity or a way to do it wirelessly or using GPS. And so our co-founder called me and asked me if that was possible. And I said, let me spend the night and think about it. And then the next day I called him back and said, yes, absolutely. I think it's possible. And so that's how SpotOn Fence started back in 2015.
Wow, that is interesting. I had never heard that story. Just out of curiosity. So, from those initial thoughts and your thought, yes, this would definitely work, to where you are today, is there a huge difference in how you thought it would work initially to what now is on the ground in the market?
So to be completely honest with you, I said that it was possible, but in my mind, it's like, oh, this is going to be very difficult. So when at the very beginning, when we started looking at proof of concepts, we were stitching together pieces of hardware that we would buy off the shelf. Every day that went on, I was becoming more apprehensive and skeptical, and not sure that was the right thing to say at the time. But just like any other, yeah, just like any other person that's passionate about doing what they're doing, we stuck with it because we felt, again, going back to my prior career, we felt that the devices that we were producing meant a lot to the people that were using them, and in that case, the situation was quite honestly life or death. And so, with that in mind, we took a lot of pride. We took a lot of dedication and commitment to the work that we provided and did, and the products that we provided. So we took that same mentality with this product. Is it has to work. We're passionate about it. We want to be able to allow dogs to roam free. And to be honest, these days, I have a dog, and a lot of people have dogs, and they're part of the family. They are a member of the family, and that's how they're treated. So we wanted to make sure that these dogs remain safe. So every hard day that went on, building this thing and testing it, we kept in the back of our minds that this is important. We're going to get through this, and it's going to work. And eventually, we got through all the hurdles. And back in 2019, as you know, we launched our first generation product.
Wow. Yeah. Well, if there's a will, there's a way, right? As they say, and your mission was big enough that you found a way to do it. I have, just a series of questions about kind of the tech behind SpotOn GPS Fence. But the first thing that I think is maybe the first logical question that a lot of dog owners have is, what is a GPS fence? When you and I spoke before, I was telling you about my dad, who has a wireless fence, but it has kind of a home base, and then it uses a perimeter. And so when I was telling him that I got a SpotOn GPS fence, he said, "Oh, I have the same thing." I was like, I don't think yours is the same. You don't. I'm like, it's very different. The actual technology of when you have a base and a wireless boundary. Tell the Big Dog Mom audience, what a GPS fence is and how it's different from a virtual or wireless dog fence.
Absolutely. So just to give the viewers some context, the first and foremost, the first thing that people normally think of is putting a physical fence around their property, and that does the job. However, depending on the size of your property and the room that you want your dog to be able to run freely, gets really confined with a physical fence. Because they're costly to put in, especially if it has to look nice. If it's a nice wooden fence, it's labor intensive and a lot of upkeep, maintenance, and that's even costly. So if you have 2-3 acres, you're talking a pretty large bill there to put in a physical fence. Now, dogs are very, very smart. They'll figure a way out of a physical fence. They'll either dig underneath the fence, or they'll figure out a way to go over it. And there are a lot of dogs that have really great ability in terms of jumping, and they might just break through it. So they'll find weak spots. Right. So that's the first thing that folks normally think of. Secondly, the buried wire fence, the invisible fence, those are great. They're hidden underground. But the problem with that is, again, they're limited to the property, the size of the property. So if you want to create a 2-acre fence line, then you're talking thousands of dollars. And again, dogs are pretty smart. If they figure out that the wire broke for some reason, like in the Northeast here, we go through seasons. A lot of frost and thawing creates the ground to contract and expand, and causing the wire to break. Leaving the fence, useless, I guess. And it requires a base station. So those are the types of fences that are out there. Not to mention, if your dog does escape the buried wire fence, you get no feedback and you can't really track. And once you put it in, once you install it, you can't take it with you. And that's a limitation that we wanted to really improve upon. And so with that, with the SpotOn GPS fence, we use GPS. And most people equate GPS with their phone, really. So if you're, kind of going from point A to point B, you utilize your map service to get you there. And so yes, although just like a paper map, all those digital maps have been thought out and well developed for decades. So really, all you need to know with your phone is kind of what road you're on. And so if you think of a road, whether it's a country road or a big highway, that's a lot of space. And what I like to equate the GPS, the SpotOn GPS fence with is not only do we know what road, we know what side of the road you're on, we know the direction you're going, and we know kind of not only within the side of the road, pretty specifically, within 3 to 5 feet, of that side of the road you're on. So we use GPS. There are 4 satellite constellations that SpotOn uses, which makes us different than others. So we use GPS, GLONASS, Galileo, and Beidou. So we have the most visibility to the most constellations, and it gives us connection to roughly 25 to 30 satellites, which makes SpotOn highly accurate.
But are there any other features that make the SpotOn GPS fence unique among the other GPS fence technologies out there?
Yes. So not only do we talk to 4 different satellite constellations, the fact that we place the position of the antenna on the back of the dog's neck is super critical. That way, the antenna has direct line of sight to all the satellites, as opposed to if it was under the dog's neck, where now the dog's neck kind of shields those signals. So that's first and foremost. And we use the most sensitive GPS antenna out in the market today that has patented technology in it, and we call it dual feed technology. And to put it at a high level, what that means is if you imagine satellite signals coming from 11,000 miles out from from the atmosphere, it's going to tend to, as it gets down to Earth, bounce around a lot. And when and those signals bounce around a lot, they tend to change form, if you will. And the dual feed technology basically filters out those signals that bounce around a lot. So the antenna actually takes the direct signals that come directly from the satellite unimpeded to the antenna on the back of the dog's neck. So that is why we achieve the performance that we achieve. And we also have what's called true location technology. And we combine not only the advanced antenna, but some other sensors that we use in combination with the antenna and the 4 satellite constellations to really pinpoint your dog's location to within 3 feet.
Well, and I think so when you're kind of talking about things bouncing around, so I'm thinking that's things like a building, trees, and that sort of thing. Is that all? That's all part of that interference, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Your home, the sides of your home, glass, automobiles, anything on your property that has that anything on your property, trees, as you just said, any physical object can cause a signal to bounce around. Absolutely.
Maybe tell us a little bit more about the antenna specifically, because I know when we had talked before, you went into a little more detail about how the signals are being sent from the satellite, how it's being received then from the antenna. And there's different types of wavelengths and different types of signals. Can you talk a little bit more? I'm fumbling terribly, but tell us a little bit more about the antenna and what makes it unique on the SpotOn GPS fence.
Yes, great question. And I think that's where a lot of common users, don't know, are not in depth knowledgeable about the different types of antennas out there. So I'll do my best to try to explain it in a way that could be understood. But if not, then I think your followers and viewers can look it up, maybe. But so the signals that emanate from the satellites, they're circular polarized. and so they travel in a circular fashion. So if you could just envision a
It's
Ferris
like a
wheel, if you will.
corkscrew.
Yeah, corkscrew. So
Yeah.
it's going like this, coming down to Earth, and our antenna is set up to receive a signal like that. So it's called right-handed circular polarized. And so if the antenna expects that signal, then it's going to receive it the best with the highest efficiency.
Okay.
Now, the antennas on your cell phone and the antennas on some of the other known devices out in the market, they're linear type antennas. And so they don't expect those circular signals to come in. They expect a different type of signal. So because of that, they actually lose half of the signal strength, half the power of the signal strength. So right off the bat, they're losing half of the signal strength. And so that's part one. Part two
Okay.
is our antenna is active. So there's a lot of circuitry in there to actually filter out noise, but any good signal that it does get, it amplifies it. So not only does it filter out noise, it amplifies the good signal so that the receiver could read it and read everything that's embedded in that signal. Some of the other devices out in the market are linear and they're passive. They do not amplify the signal. Not only that, they allow all the signal to come in. So it really confuses the receiver like, okay, I'm getting all these weird signals. How do I really process this? So
Mm-hmm.
that's why they're not as good in terms of performance. So spot on, right-handed circular polarized active antenna, other devices, linear antenna that are passive. So those two things make the biggest difference between us and what's out in the market.
And just translate that to a dog owner's experience then with Spot On. Why would that matter to a dog owner?
Absolutely. So we most of the properties that I see, and I see that our customers have, they have a nice, beautiful lot. Home is in the center. They have a nice yard with grass, but their property is also lined by trees. So, for example, my property is, as I just described, surrounded by tall oak and maple trees. And so what we do is we build the fence line about 10 feet into the tree line so that we allow our dog Henry to go in and go to the bathroom. And so as you're building the fence, you want that fence to be exactly where you walked. And so once you complete it, you save it and then you activate the fence. Now, as the collar is being used on your dog, now you want to know that where the dog is compared to that fence line is going to be accurate. And where a lot of the other devices fail is they get tricked by that tree line. That tree line will block the signal, will cause signals to bounce, and now you're actually, those devices will think you're either 20 feet, 30 feet past the fence line, or 20 feet, 30 feet from the fence line. So it varies. So you'll get that uncertainty, and that's where you'll see the biggest difference between us and the other devices out there. When we say 10 feet, when you set that fence line 10 feet into the woods, you're going to get that plus or minus 3 to 5 feet, not
Right.
30 to 40 feet.
Yeah, and I would just add too, I mean, that is true of our experience that where we walked our boundary, it rarely is varying more than 2 or 3 feet one way or the other. Because I actually planted flags where I drew the line so I could see how accurate it was, because most of our lot is trees. And so it has been interesting just from a personal anecdotal, this is our experience. It has been pretty well spot on. As far as the tracking is concerned, can you kind of talk about the technology behind how it's tracking the dog?
Sure. So tracking is absolutely optional. So the fence and containment feature functionality of the spot on fence is you don't it's not subscription is not required. So all that is self-contained, and you can create a fence and contain your dog. The tracking feature is, for example, if your dog is absolutely one of those dogs that will want to chase after that deer or the squirrel, and they don't mind getting the alert warning tone and the static correction, then they'll run right through that line. And so in the case that happens, the tracking feature allows the caller to be able to connect to a carrier, whether it be Verizon or AT&T,
Mm-hmm.
send a message to the user's smartphone and say, "Hey, Henry, or your dog is out of the containment zone," and now that allows you to actually uh, to view your dog's location on a nice overlay map and see your dog's location to within 3 feet in almost real time. And so the technology behind that is, or the GPS feature is already in there. So that gives the location of your dog. Now to transfer that location to the network and then through our server and then to your phone requires what we call LTEM, or an IoT Internet of Things module. So that connects to your preferred carrier. You could choose either AT&T or Verizon. We offer both. And that allows you, or the call, to relay that information, that message, to your phone. And it updates your pet's location every 6 seconds. So that's the technology behind the tracking feature. And at any point in time, if you have 10 acres, 20 acres, like many of our customers do, and your dog's not in view, you could actually go to the app and hit refresh location and instantly see the location of your pet at that time. So that's the kind of peace of mind that people, that's the reason why they add the subscription, so that they can actually see the location of their dog. And in the event, rare event that your dog escapes, you get to track them.
Yeah, the tracking feature, super fun because we have a lot of trees. And so
Yep.
being able to track the dogs, it's actually really fun. It's like you're spying on them. Where did they go? Like, oh, what's going through their little brains where they are. And actually for us, we were able to track them. This was like last summer when we first set up our SpotOn GPS fence, and to be able to watch them, like, are they heading down to the garden? Oh, I can see Junior. He's going down there, So we would always be able to like see what the dogs were doing. So super fun. The one question that I did get about the notification feature of the tracking on the actual SpotOn GPS Fence app, with the cellular plan enabled or subscribed to, you will get a little thing on your phone. It says, "Oh, Junior has left the perimeter, left the boundary," or I forget exactly the verbiage, but it says the dog has left. But it actually doesn't make a verbal sound. It just simply changes, the pop-up comes up on the screen. Is there a way to enable a sound with that notification? Do you know? Or is it a function of the notification settings in your phone? Kind of an aside question, but I told her I'd ask.
Yeah, no, great question. It is it's a functionality of the operating system, depending on the phone you have. If you have Android or Apple,
Okay.
you do have to go in to the operating system under your applications and allow for sounds. So, depending on whether it's Android or Apple, the configurations or the defaults are different. I think Android might have them default off. Apple might have them default on. I'm not quite sure, but
Okay.
yes, absolutely. When you do get our notifications from the SpotOn Fence app, if you choose or opt for a notification sound, it once you enable it, it will produce a sound. If your viewers still have questions, they can certainly go pick up the phone and call our customer service team. They're
Okay.
there and they're more than happy to help, and they're very knowledgeable. And for questions like that, your viewers will be able to get answers pretty easily.
Awesome. Yeah, I will make sure that all of that information is down below this video for sure.
Just one thing I wanted to mention about you. You said the tracking feature was very fun.
Yeah.
And even as the developer of this product, as a dog parent, you're having this great tech is great, but you're still always paranoid, right? And
Oh my
so
gosh,
we
yeah.
have we have our dog Henry. He's a 25 30 pound mini golden doodle, and we let him outside with a collar, and he's great. He goes outside, and he loves to chase chipmunks. And so one day he was out there, and we have a pretty good size back deck. And I looked at the app, and the icon showed him right in the middle of the deck. I'm like, oh, let me just take a peek out of the back window. I didn't see him. I'm like, oh boy, what's going on? So I went outside, and I was like, Henry, where are you? He wasn't on the deck, and the icon clearly shows he was on the deck. He was actually underneath the deck, chasing around the
Oh my
chipmunks.
gosh.
So that's where he was. So in actuality, it was where he was, but just underneath the deck. So
That
that was kind of a fun, little paranoia thing going on.
That is awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think the only other thing I will add about the whole tracking feature is that is one of the things that drew me to Spot On was the fact that you don't have to have it to get full functionality of this fence. And that's not true of all GPS fences in all companies. A lot of them want a monthly membership or a monthly fee to access the full functionality. And so I really appreciated that about Spot On, because the tracking is not necessary for everything that we need this fence to do for us. We get full functionality, and I frankly, we played with it a lot at the beginning, and I rarely even use it now, but it's there if I need it. And so I love having it. So let's transition and kind of talk a little bit about how the boundaries are created. So how do you build a Spot On GPS fence?
Absolutely. So the first one that we launched with was basically, the easiest way and most accurate way to build a fence is you actually hold the collar in one hand, and your phone in the other, with our Spot On app up. And so you go through the onboarding and get to the point where you start building a fence, and that's pretty easy. We have all sorts of great tool tips that get you to be able to create a fence right away, right out of the box, pretty much. So you hold both devices in your hand and you start walking. And as you walk, you actually see on your phone, overlaid on a map, the fence actually being built. So if you're trying to walk a driveway line that is along edge of your grass, and you could see it on the map, and you're seeing the actual line right being built right on top of it, like, oh, this is working great. So you could actually walk contours of your driveway or whatever feature you have in your yard, and as you're walking it, it's being built. So as you're building your fence, as you're walking, the collar is actually dropping fence posts every second, let's just say. And as you're walking, if you encounter an obstacle, you could actually hit a pause button. And so when you hit pause, the collar will stop taking those fence posts. You could actually walk around the obstacle or the pond or whatever you can't make it through, walk around and go to the other side and click resume. Once you click resume, it'll snap a line from that pause point to the new point that you just clicked resume, and you can continue creating the fence. And as you get to about 20 feet from your initial starting point, the app will ask you if you want to save your fence or continue going. So you could opt to do either. If you opt to save, you click save. You can name the fence, give it a special name. You can name it home. You can name it front yard, side yard. And once you do that, then the fence is ready to go. You can start testing the fence and making sure the boundary is where you wanted it to be. So a lot of our customers have huge properties, do 10 plus acres, 20. A lot of customers have guardian working dogs. And so we're talking tens of acres. So it wouldn't be as efficient or as fun to walk that type of boundary. So we actually have a feature that we released recently, probably a few months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, that now you could actually draw the fence on your app. So you could drop fence posts to create the boundary. So typically, what we do is you bring up the app, you select the type of fence you want. I think it's called Draw Fence. Select that, and a nice bright satellite image of your property comes up, and you could actually pinch and zoom and drop fence posts exactly where you want. And that's the benefit of that feature, is because if you have a large property, you really necessarily don't want to walk it. The boundary that you create on your phone is going to be just fine and good enough, and that's all you need. So that's the beautiful part of that, is being able to draw the fence. Not only that, for either a fence that you walk or a fence that you drew, you could actually edit it. So for example, the fence that you walk, maybe this particular section of your fence, it didn't show up where you wanted it. So you could actually go in and edit it and drag out a certain section of the fence line to make it more customizable. So not only can you walk it, draw it, you can actually edit it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, the editing feature is amazing. and saved me so much time. Yeah, I've talked a little bit about that on Big Dog Mom, so I'll make sure that I link below some of the other videos that I've done about our experience with the fence building, because essentially what happened was the very first time I built our fence, it included half of the garden, unfortunately. So as the dogs are slowly devouring our cantaloupe patch, that was like in and around the time the editing feature came out. And so I was able to just touch each dot and like move it away so that now, you know, we have a rectangular property, but right around the garden, it's sort of carved out. So that's our summer fence. So it protects our garden, but yeah, it was super easy to do, and you can easily duplicate fences and then tweak them if you want to. We've done that too. And then you can also do a circular fence where it's like a temporary one. And so that would be more for like, wouldn't you say, just people like going camping, they're at a campground and they want just a circular boundary around their camping spot.
Yeah, not only you do a circular fence, and yes, that would be the most common use of the circular fence is at a campground. But I've seen people do it just as a quick fence that they could pop up at their homes. And, you know, it depends on people and how you know, how savvy they are. They could choose to do a circle and actually do a square as well if they wanted to. So that's part of the beauty of the drawing the fence is it drops a square first, and you can just leave it as that.
That's awesome. I love the flexibility of just, you've kind of got a way to do it that will work for nearly 100% of dog owners. So maybe let's kind of transition. So you kind of told us about how the fences are actually built. So like we have a summer and a winter fence, and in my app, I can toggle between the two. But can you kind of talk about that feature of being able to activate and deactivate individual fences, and you can build multiple fences, and then kind of the tech behind how that all works?
Sure. So with SpotOn, you could save up to 20 different fences. And the great thing, as you just mentioned, you know, with your summer and the winter fence, people have parts of their yard that they want or don't want their pets to go out. So I've seen many customers have a nighttime potty fence, and they'll have a fence that is circling the backyard where they trust that maybe emotion light, sensor light goes on when their dog's out and they could go potty. Then they'll have one that's the entire home. And so they'll build a fence that actually has that previous fence inside this other fence. And so the great thing about the SpotOn GPS fence is you could activate any collar at any time. And so if you want to do the nighttime fence, you could activate that, and it takes less than 2-3 seconds. If you want to activate the full yard fence, you could do that as well. And now, so those are just two fences. If you want to travel with your dog, which a lot of our customers do, or they have, you know, different homes, multiple homes, or go to a friend's house, family member's house, they could actually build a fence there. So not only can you have 2, 3, 4 fences at your own home, depending on the time of year or the time of day, you could actually take this collar with your dog and now take your dog with you, because they are part of the family, to a friend's house. And you could create a pop-up fence there. You could walk it, you could draw it, circular fence or square fence, and save it there as well. And so now you could save that. And then you have 15 other fences that you create to some of your most favorite spots. If you have a beach or a campground, so it's endless. And if you're not happy with the fence, you could delete it, do it again. It's just a matter of getting to know, you know, the ins and outs of the app and whatnot. So that's kind of the reasoning behind it. We felt like, okay, well, people are transient. They love to travel. They go, people live in the city, or you may not use this product a lot. They have homes in suburban parts of areas or rural parts of areas. Or up in the mountains. We're here in the Northeast. We have a lot of mountainous areas, trees, woods that we love to take our kids and take our dog. And there's nothing that gives us more peace of mind than to have the collar with us and be able to just let our dog, run free. So that's the key behind the multiple fences and saving up to 20.
I love it. It's super helpful to hear just how that all works. And I think, from a dog owner's perspective, being able to take I mean, you're basically taking your fence with you, which is just a really interesting concept, I think, because that's essentially what that collar is. You build the fence is that collar. When I take it to my sister's, for example, in Alabama, I can easily just pop up, activate her fence, that I have saved on in the app. It just couldn't be easier. So being able to activate and deactivate fences individually, I know that is something that is unique to the SpotOn GPS fence. How do other types of fences work when it comes to that, where they say they have multiple fences?
Yeah, it's a great question, Stephanie. And kind of a recent discovery of us kind of continuing to do our homework against our competitors versus what we have, and always trying to improve and be better. And hopefully, your viewers and hopefully eventually users of our product will see the difference. And it's hard to really see the difference at the onset, but as you dig it deeper into the capabilities, you'll see the difference. And as you just said, some of the products out there, all the fences are either on or off. So that's why you can't have overlapping fences. They don't allow that. And without going into too much detail,
Sure.
a lot of the GPS receivers out there have this kind of canned geofencing capability, and it's very, very bare bones, if you will, like very limited what you can do with it. And I think a lot of the products out there that have this geofencing capability utilize that canned feature from the receiver, which does not allow them to have fences that overlap like we can, and or all on, all off feature. Whereas with Spot On, we had taken the concept of geofencing and said, okay, using a canned version is not going to be good enough for what we're trying to do, and for our pets, our family members. So we decided to create our own version, like homegrown version of that geofencing capability, which is why you could have 1,500 fence posts as opposed to 20. Uh, which is why you could have overlapping fences as opposed to not overlapping fences. Um, so that, we wanted the most flexibility, capability, and doing it the way that we've done it, I think gives our customers the greatest amount of flexibility and reliability for a product that protects your dog.
So let's transition, kind of talk about how to maintain the GPS boundary that you have. Is there anything that the dog owner needs to do post, building that fence?
Sure. Earlier, I talked about why Spot On GPS Fences product is unique and superior is because of the antenna. So the active antenna versus the passive, and the circular polarized versus the linear. So let's talk about that or revisit that. So let's say you're inside a home with 2 floors or inside a building that blocks GPS signals. So in the term calibrating, when used with other devices, is because they have the lower performing antenna and receiver, they lose that GPS fix inside of buildings. And so when they say recalibrate, they want you to go outside and reobtain the GPS signal so that it gets the latest, what's called almanac and ephemeris data, which is just fancy terms for knowing which satellites you're actually knowing to look for out up in the sky. So for systems like that, they ask you to go outside and get a fix so that you get all the latest information. With our system, you could be inside like your home right now and still have a GPS fix. So there's no need to have to go outside and quote unquote recalibrate or get a fix, because of the antenna and the receiver we use, you have a fix while that collar is sitting inside your house. So no need to go outside and do that. So with that said, there's really no need to maintain the fence either. So once you've built it and you've tested the boundary, and part of our onboarding in the app, in our quick start guide, it tells you to, once you start building the fence, test the boundary where you actually walked, pick some landmarks to walk around or over so that and remember where you walked, and you could test the boundary in those areas. And that's about it. Once you're happy with the boundary, at that point, there's really no maintenance other than if your dog starts getting smart and starts testing some boundaries, you may want to shift, a portion further in or further out. It really up to you. But for the most part, once fences are built and saved, we've found that there's really no need to maintain them.
I think that's great. And yep, we really haven't experienced any need to do anything whatsoever. Once that fence was built, we were really good to go. Somebody that's not familiar with SpotOn GPS Fence, so maybe describe just the functionality of the dog approaches the boundary and what happens. I think the perception sometimes is that this is like a shock collar. It couldn't, that's not at all what it is. But maybe talk a little bit about the tech and like what happens as the dog approaches the boundary and how is that boundary experienced by the dog?
Absolutely. So if I could just geek out just a little bit,
Totally.
Every square meter of the Earth's surface is mapped out, and each has a latitude and longitude coordinate associated with it. So using that as a baseline foundation, as you build a fence, we're collecting those waypoints or latitude longitude points. And as we're walking, these little segments that are about 1 meter to 2 meters long are being built. And so let's just say you walk a fence that has 500 fence posts. Those 500 points are interconnected by a segment. And those segments are defined by those endpoints, which are the waypoints or the latitude and longitude points that have been previously mapped out by, some government body that is responsible for that thing. So once you create this fence, we call it a polygon because it's essentially a polygon. And so once it's saved, those coordinates are saved and mapped out. So now we know exactly the location of those segments or those fence lines. So now that your dog is wearing the collar and you've activated the fence, the fence segments or fence lines are saved. And what is happening in real time is the collar knows the location of the dog at that point. It's always taking the collar's location or your dog's location and comparing it to the closest segment. So whatever the closest segment is determined to be, we're actually measuring the distance between the dog and that segment. And so let's just say the dog is 15 yards. I'll just say yards because it's a U.S. audience. So I won't speak in meters. So let's just say the dog is 15 yards away from the closest segment. So we're saying, okay, that's the closest segment. That's the most likely segment that dog will breach if that happens. So let's just say your dog walks towards that segment. We're now tracking the distance and keeping track of the distance. So it'll go 15 yards, 14 and a half, 13, depending on how fast your dog's moving. And when you're within 3 yards of that boundary, the dog will start getting the alert tone. And so if your dog's trained to the alert tone, he or she will just turn around and go back so that the alert tone will stop. If your dog proceeds to within a yard and a half of that fence line, they'll hear a warning tone. And that's kind of a harsher tone. And these tones were developed with professional dog trainers that we worked with that are well known. So it's tried and true method of training your dog. And if your dog is really willing to cross the boundary and go chase something, once they actually hit that boundary, they'll get the static correction. So that's how the technology works. Is it knows the location of your dog, and it always has that fence line, whichever the closest segment is, comparing it to at all times.
Okay. And yeah, I think the other thing to mention too is just that the static correction is optional. You can toggle that off if you never want to use that. And there is a vibration too, which we use. So that can be enabled. So you could have 2 alert tones and a vibration. I mean, and being able to get 2 alert tones before anything were to happen at the boundary is really nice as well. I know there's a couple of new features that I don't know if you wanted to maybe talk about those a little bit, because it kind of is in line with building the virtual fences and then, maintaining them and some special use cases for certain types of fences. So maybe can you talk a little bit about those couple of newer features that have just recently been, I think they're in beta, so they're not even widely out yet, but maybe give the Big Dog Mom audience a preview of what's to come.
Sure. So you mentioned you had a cantaloupe patch. Is that right?
We had, it's past tense because it didn't last long. We actually
Yeah.
got zero. The humans in our house got zero cantaloupe from this
Yeah.
cantaloupe patch. And actually, Sully enjoyed tomatoes. He enjoyed peaches, which are not super safe for dogs. So that was a scary thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
he is a vegetarian dog, or wannabe. He's not actually, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, yes, the dogs constantly would get into the garden. And so, yeah, that was really a struggle.
So that's a perfect segue into this new feature that you just mentioned that is in beta with I think a couple hundred users at just released yesterday morning, I believe. So this new feature is what's called a keep out zone. So most people who have larger properties, it only works for people who have a certain size property, like maybe an acre or something, but they have these areas that they want to keep their dogs out of. So, for example, your garden patch, your cantaloupe patch and peaches and stuff. So imagine you have your fence that goes around your property that you want to keep your dogs contained in, and within that fence, you have prized possessions like your cantaloupes that you want to actually protect from your dogs. So you can now, or you will be able to, I should say, once it's beta tested and we're happy with it. You could actually draw a keep out zone around certain parts of your containment zone. So in your case, you would draw a keep out zone around your garden,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole thing still works as is. So imagine you drew a keep out zone around your garden. So now your dog's in your containment, which is great. That's what you want. Now within that containment, if your dog approaches that keep out zone, the same methodology is being used in terms of the alert tone. So if they're within 3 yards, they'll get the alert tone. If they're within a yard and a half, they'll get the warning tone. If they actually enter that or cross that keep out zone, they'll get that optional static correction or vibration that you set. So now, because they're already trained to those tones and the vibration, they know that they need to turn around. And so
Right.
that's the whole idea and concept of that, because a lot of people don't just have flat bare land that they really don't care about any parts of what's in it. A lot of people have, gardens, they have flower beds, they have, or even a dirty pond that they don't feel like they want their dog to go jumping in so that they have to,
Sure.
bathe them at the end of the day. Things like that. Or dangerous areas like prickly bushes or whatnot, or they know where there's usually where a skunk hangs out, you know, things like that. So now people will be able to draw keep out zones to keep their dogs from entering, such areas.
Another example in the app, because I signed up to be part of the beta testers for this new feature. So I'm super excited. The chicken coop, because we want chickens. So being able to keep the dogs out of like a chicken coop area, maybe where there's other animals. So I thought that was a
And
really good idea.
And the great thing is, if you choose to have a subscription, which is optional, if you
Mm-hmm.
do enable that, you'll actually get notifications saying, because in a larger property, you may not have visibility, line of sight to those keep out zones. So you'll get notified that your dog actually entered it,
Mm.
and you can go run out and do something about it. So you'll get a notification if they enter or leave. So now that you're well informed of where they're kind of spending their time and playing or trying to test. So
Right.
you'll be notified of those events.
That's awesome to keep the chickens safe for sure.
So on the flip side of that, so the other part of that new feature, the beta release, is we have what's called a home zone. So you can actually draw a boundary around your house. So let's say you're
Right.
a person that goes in the office every day, and you allow your dog to stay at home and go in and out, and you trust the SpotOn collar to do its job. You could actually draw a boundary or a fence around your home, and that does one of two things. A, if your actual main fence boundary is near your home, it will basically, if your dog enters that home zone, it'll turn off containment, so there's no risk of your dog getting unnecessarily corrected due to some of that potential signal bouncing that we discussed earlier. In some cases, people who have metal roofs, we try to consider all sorts of building construction. Metal roofs are the worst. They reflect
Right.
signals and make them bounce like crazy. So we wanted to add that extra safe feature so that if you draw a home zone, as soon as your dog enters that home zone, the containment feature is shut off, and there's no risk of any tones going off or anything like that. And if you're away at the office, you'll get a notification saying your dog enter the home zone. So now you know your dog's inside the house and safe, and you'll get a notification if your dog leaves. So now you get notifications for home zone, keep out zone, as well as your main
The main
fence
boundary.
boundary.
So maybe talk about forest mode, because that I thought, originally we have forest mode enabled because our entire boundary has heavy tree cover. And so forest mode enables the dogs to be able to come in the house and not be corrected. Maybe translate that to this new home feature, maybe kind of marry the two functionalities with the dog wearing the collar in the house.
Absolutely, and that's part of the reason. And I'm glad you brought that up, Stephanie. And that's part of the reason why we wanted the beta test, because it's kind of a shift in our use of force mode. Um,
Oh, okay.
so at the beginning, we wanted to do what you just said. If the dog enters the home, we wanted to detect that it entered the house and provided safety, and not allowing corrections to go off and whatnot unnecessarily. The downside to having the most sensitive active antenna that could detect very low signals in a high-end receiver that detects for constellations is that you could be in a 2-3 story home and you could still get GPS, or you still have a fix to the satellites. And so there are certain instances in its corner case that those signals still can bounce around and cause that to trigger if your fence line is right up against your house or through the home. So based on based on feedback from customers and our own internal testing, we wanted, okay, what can we do to really shore that up to make that 100%? So
Mm-hmm.
with force mode, if you have it enabled, that means you have the full strength, full sensitivity of everything. So you could
Mm-hmm.
probably get a signal whether you're in your basement or not. So that allows you to allow the dog to go inside of the house and whatnot, with the containment feature on. With it disabled, that will allow your dog to enter the home and not get unnecessarily corrected. In
Okay.
certain parts of the country, and I think even where you are, you're in the northern part of the country where in the summer, a lot of foliage, a lot of
Oh yeah.
canopy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in the really thick parts of the woods, the thick part of the woods could kind of trick the collar into thinking it's inside
It's
of a
home.
house.
Right.
That's right. So if that happens, what do? We turn off containment. So if you have a fence line up in the really thick part of the tree line, that could cause quote unquote a hole in the fence, if you will, and
Okay.
allow your dog to venture outside of the fence. So that's the genesis of the home zone. Now we actually have physical boundaries we create to say this is the home zone, and now we're going to enable forest mode all the time so that we know that the dog A is inside the home zone because it's geographically now being compared to that fence that you drew around your house, and we're still using a clever algorithm to look at the signal strength as well. So those two in combination is going to make this home zone feature really, really robust and a full solution. Not only that, now you could have a fence line that's in the heaviest of forest. You could be in
Mm-hmm.
the Amazon jungle and it'll still detect a signal. So that's kind of the thought behind the home zone, is to really ensure that we have the most robust solution and allow your dog to enter your home safely, even if you have a fence line that abuts your house, as well
Gotcha.
as any fence lines that are up in really heavily lined force.
So then that it would effectively make the forest mode the new home feature would we need that then?
So we wanted to, because we have a lot of legacy, we have a lot of folks that may or may not update the caller software. You know how people are. You can never you can never assume people are going to update the caller software. So we have to make it backwards compatible. So
Got it.
for folks that don't have a home zone drawn, the
Mm-hmm.
caller is going to work the way that they've always expected it to work. For
Okay.
folks that do draw a home zone, then it's going to work the way that we've designed it to work based on our what I just discussed.
Okay. And updating the collar is as simple as just connecting it to Bluetooth, and it does it. It will prompt you automatically. So anytime I connect ours to Bluetooth, it will, if there's an update available, it'll just run through. It takes like 2 minutes.
Yep,
So
you'll get a pop-up saying there's a
super
new
simple.
version available. Yep, exactly. It'll take
Yep.
3 to 4 minutes.
So it just started in beta, the keep out zone. So do you have a timeline in mind, like when those will go live? And to know.
So we're looking to run about 2 weeks worth of
Oh,
beta testing. So our hope, if there's
so
nothing
soon.
major that comes out of, and I suspect, based on our own experience and how well we think we know our customers, we've put out what we think is in line with our customers' expectations. So our expectation is, yeah, there'll be some feedback, but not nothing aside from anything major like a big bug or something. Any tweaks, small tweaks, we'll listen to, but it won't prevent us from launching it to the
Launching.
full fleet of customers. So we're first week of April,
Okay.
we're targeting. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's super exciting. Yeah. Like I said, I can't wait to get out and try both of them. And so I'll be sure to share that on Big Dog Mom for all of you that are following our journey with SpotOn GPS Fence. So I will be sure to share all of that information as well. So is there anything else that you would like to add about SpotOn that we haven't already discussed today? I mean, we've talked about a lot and a lot of the tech stuff, but is there anything else about the SpotOn company that you would like to make sure that the Big Dog audience knows?
Absolutely. Before I do that, I do want to answer your question. We are working on new features. I can't mention them right now, but we're constantly looking to add new features that will make it more valuable for our customers and users to spend time with their dog, interact with their dog, have allow them to go out and roam free and explore, do what they are naturally good at, go out, have fun, and explore. So we're always constantly looking to add new features in terms of allowing your dog to go out and be safe. So absolutely, yes, we're
That's
definitely
awesome.
doing that. Yep. And then from a spot on fence, it's obviously not a household name, and we want people to know that they're real people who care deeply about our customers and their experience with spot on, not only with the product, but the interaction with their dog and how it keeps their dog safe. We have a great customer service team dedicated to support any and all customers who have questions and concerns. And so, from a kind of non household name, we provide what I believe is good quality customer service and technical support. I'll tell you that myself, being in this for the last, coming up on a decade now, I've been on personal customer calls to real customers, helping them troubleshoot, get through obstacles. For example, a customer out in New Mexico, they were experiencing some issues, and probably for 2 months straight, we've been chatting in email, phone, video calls, just to help them get through. And so that's kind of the dedication and the support we want to provide. Nothing is more important to me than to have our customers trust the product and get value from it, because I know what it means, to them and their pets. So from that perspective, yeah, we might not be a household name, but we provide the care and the support that goes behind the product. And I want your views to know that we 100% behind our product, and that
Yeah.
not only myself, there are other qualified folks that will get on the phone, get on video calls to help them through anything that they need.
And you have trainers, certified trainers that customers can call too. Like if you need help with the training of, helping your dog learn the boundary and that sort of thing, correct?
That's right. Yeah, we have, I believe we have a bunch of trainers that you could call, get in contact with, professional trainers that are, yeah, like you said, certified, that are more than happy to reach out and answer any questions. And if geographically possible, make a visit and help train as well.
Yeah, the training is really pretty simple, but it definitely helps to have somebody there supporting you, especially if you've never done that before. And because it is a virtual boundary, so that can be tricky potentially for some people. So having a professional there that can just, I think in the app, it's a click of a button, a phone call. It couldn't be easier to get in touch with somebody. So that's awesome. And everybody is based in the U.S., right?
In fact, they were all under one roof. Our customer service team is literally a 10-second walk from my office. So anything that they need to ask me when they're live on a call, and if they don't know answer to a question, they'll knock on my door, and I'm always happy to help them help our customer. Yep, absolutely. 100% US.
Awesome. Yes, and you need to follow SpotOn well, I've seen them shared on Facebook too, but on Instagram. You guys shared a video of Henry running around the office. It's so cute. I'm just totally jealous. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I have 2 dogs laying underneath my chair right now. So I guess I do go to work with my dogs, but not everybody has that ability. And I remember even when I was going to work, when I was working outside the home, how much I would have loved to have a pet-friendly workplace. So it's so cute to see the SpotOn videos of your team and all of their dogs. It's super cute.
Yeah, it's great atmosphere. It's fun having the dogs run around, and they're so unique. Every one of our employee pets, it's wonderful. We just love it. It creates a great atmosphere.
I'm going to make sure that I put links to everything that we have kind of talked about. If I have a video on the topic, if I have a blog post on the topic, I'll make sure I have links to everything down below. You can subscribe to SpotOn GPS Fence if you want more information. Really a good newsletter to subscribe to. So I'll make sure that the link to do that is down below as well. There was a really wonderful announcement here recently that, speaking of, subscribing to your newsletter. Sung, do you want to talk a little bit about the price?
Absolutely. So, with our ongoing improvement with the product, we're trying to reduce the cost in every aspect, whether it's the components that go inside or the cost that goes into manufacturing all this. And as you know, we're all doing this here in New Hampshire in the US. And so as we seek to reduce costs of putting this together, we've actually achieved that. And so because we've achieved lower costs in putting this together, we're passing that savings on to customers, and therefore we've reduced the retail price from $14.95 down to $12.95. Wow. And some of the coupon codes still work, like yours, Stephanie. I think your code still applies for also $100 beyond that. So we've achieved our goal in terms of reducing the cost of putting the collar together, and now we're passing it on to our potential customers.
That's awesome. I love that. And just the fact that you even thought to do it. It's not like, I don't know, so many times like things will go up and it's like, well, they never come down. Think of things like taxes. Yeah. Those prices are never coming down, unfortunately. Well, I can still hold out hope. Let me say that. But as far as SpotOn goes, I love that you're just so customer centric that you are passing along some of those savings to your customers. And I do think that that's going to open the door to many more dog owners, big dog owners especially, that really need a solution for their property. And I think SpotOn for many, many people will be a great option. Yeah, you can use the code BigDogMom. I'll put it in a caption on the video, and then I'll put a link down below. If you want to, you save an additional $100, which is awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time today. I know this was a lengthy interview, and it was hard to get us scheduled again after the audio issues that we experienced the first time. So I am so hopeful that everyone in the Big Dog audience really enjoys this wonderful interview. If you have any additional questions, anything that you want to know about SpotOn GPS Fence that we didn't talk about, or if you have it and you have questions, please put those down in the comments below, and either myself, I will make sure that everyone on the SpotOn team is able to see those, and we'll get some answers for you. And as Sung mentioned earlier, it's as easy as a phone call to call SpotOn, and you'll get somebody here in America that will answer your question as well. They really want to serve you and your big dog as best as they can. So thank you so much, Sung. Again, I really appreciate it. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in our next video. Bye for now. I'm gonna pause for just a sec. Can you hear my dog snoring in the background?
No.
You can't? Okay.
Nope.
I don't know if the mic is picking him up, but I'm like, either I am gonna have to throw something. Okay, sorry. So this won't take but a second or two of your time. So, all right. Yes, I have treats. Heads up about what you're about to see. First and foremost, an amazing interview with an absolutely brilliant man. Oh, Junie, you're gonna knock the camera over. Come here, you see this? There we go, sit down. Oh, you're gonna slobber right on me. Sit down. Juners. There's lovely. Okay. Oh God, you're gonna slobber all over me. Okay. Okay, hold on. Don't move. I'll try to be quick. And he is a wealth of information, and he basically, oh, God, so eat. Ew.